Great evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I thought I said great evening.
Great evening.
Everybody together, great evening.
Great evening.
Great. Esteemed fellow panelists, very distinguished number of persons Vijay Bala has identified today for this book reading. I compliment him on his choice, with of course my exception, more extinguished. And also congratulate the Madras Management Association for this initiative, because this is a time when people are losing the passion for reading. Even as Mr. Chidambaram said, the passion for reading was one of the riches of the generation to which we belong. But that passion is today, due to the advances in technology, changes in lifestyle, almost fading. And people have time only for, quick glances at WhatsApp and social media, Facebook and things like that. So there is a need for organizations like Madras Management Association to again keep that passion alive and even hone it to its pitch. I had the opportunity to look into this book, though I didn't read it word for word because I left it to the panelists to discuss the merits of the book as well as their experience. But this desire to understand obstacles has been part of my life for a very long while. Right from childhood, I found that obstacles is what adds meaning to our life, meaning and color to our life, where otherwise it would be drab and routine and monotonous and uniform. It is challenges that actually awaken us to our highest powers. We move from the comfort zone to the challenge zone. Challenge zone is a phrase that I have coined vis-a-vis comfort zone. And it's only something which is challenging that can get us out of that comfort zone. It is said that a ship is not built to stay in the harbor, though it is safest in the harbor. But of course in Madras harbor, you find accidents happening in Madras harbor with the ships getting washed out and sailors getting drowned. But human beings, the way we are designed for tough times. But there is a kind of myth that the purpose of life is the pursuit of happiness. This is truly a myth when you look back at life, what life has taught us. Because it is the historic inability of man to learn the lessons of life in good times that makes adversity, the diversity of adversity, the best university to shape as well as to test human character. And human character is the greatest wealth on this planet. Yes, we have a lot of wealth on this planet in terms of nature, in terms of scenery, in terms of diversity. But human character is what distinguishes this planet. And that is why when we look back at history, we find a great king like Cyrus, the founder of the Persian Empire. After he had conquered huge tracts of land, extending across Asia and even parts of Europe, his generals came to him and said, "Sire, I think this is time that we move our capital from the mountainous, rough regions to the fertile plains which we have annexed." And Cyrus told them, "You may think of doing what you like, but remember that soft ground breeds soft people. The corollary is hard ground breeds hardy people." And this is the philosophy behind training. In the Indian police service, they add components which actually do not accord to the reality of our everyday policing life, like horse riding, rock climbing, martial arts. The purpose of such training is that we will be challenged by the difficulties. When Mrs. Indira Gandhi was asked that why do you have an anachronism which belongs to the colonial times, still in the training of the civil servants. She said a young civil servant or an IPS officer should be able to control an animal which is 10 times his power, his strength and prowess. Therefore, in times of good times, one needs to be in training for troubles. And that's where a book like The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday is a kind of training. When you read a book, it is actually you are training yourself. The book becomes your trainer. The author, in that sense, pours his understanding and his experience into your life, just as the way a trainer would do in a real-time session with trainees. And it's a cost-effective way of training people. You can share your wisdom, share your understanding, and even the mistakes that you have committed in coming to that kind of mature understanding. In this book, it is divided into 3 segments, which I believe the panelists will deal with: the discipline of perception, the discipline of action, the discipline of perseverance. The primary discipline that one needs to deal with obstacles and challenges is perception. I write Philippisms every day. You know, it's not a pun on my surname Philip, but it is Philippism, which means a motivational saying, a word that I coined. And one saying that I wrote was that you can't change the reality in the short run, but you can change your perception of the reality in an instant. While you're attending this session, your perception of the very obstacles that you resented, that you have overcome in your life, you would find that it is an integral part of your life. It is something that is valuable. That's something that has taught you, something that has shaped you to be who you are today. In this thought process that I created called equilibrium thinking, which is also a coping strategy, each of us needs coping strategies to deal with the difficulties and challenges we face in life. And this coping strategy I evolved by thinking about the aspects of an obstacle that we face in everyday life. The aspects are: one is be at it. Be at it implies that you need to be on the positive frame of thought. And this is thought to be the holy grail, positive thinking. But it is not, because mere positive thinking cannot overcome the deeply ingrained negative. There are deeply ingrained negatives in our very DNA, in our psyche. And in order to overcome, there is another tool that is required, which I discovered after 13 years of thinking on Be At It in 1994, called Beat It. Be at it, beat it. The entire Tirukkural is contained in a nutshell in just Be At It, beat it, which implies it's a software to deal with obstacles, to deal with challenges in life. If it is a positive thing that you're facing, there could be certain negative aspects that you have ignored. For example, if you're highly successful, you tend to become complacent. I recently met a businessman who said that I ran an empire of 120 crores, but I became arrogant and proud. I wouldn't listen to counsel. And as a result, I ran losses which overtook my total assets by 80 crores. And I faced a debt of 80 crores. The reason for this is that person did not internalize both aspects of Be At It and Beat It. So the discipline of perception requires a thought process. It should be consistent. It should not be something that happens by fluke or by chance, but that consistently you are able to look at whether it's success, whether it's failure, whether it is a challenge, whether it is a liability. You're able to factor both aspects of the positive and the negative into it. Beat it means the negative aspect. If you look at nature, all of nature is configured in the pattern of be at it, beat it. You breathe in oxygen, which is positive. You breathe out carbon dioxide, which is negative, negative, or positive. And so when you continually think on this rhythmic pattern, you develop your inner resilience. In order to face challenges, obstacles in life, one needs to develop our resilience. That resilience cannot be taught by a second person. It cannot be taught even by our parents. Yes, we can learn from teachers, from models, from mentors. But you need to evolve your own coping strategies. Each of us have capabilities which are tested in normal times. But our capabilities, which is the sum total of our coping strategies and the abilities to deal with obstacles, are tested only when we face obstacles. So an obstacle is the way to discover our inner self. As a young IPS officer, I had dreams of reaching the highest echelons of the police, which is the usual ambition of every young man or young woman who joins the police service. But at a young age, when I was just completed my training, Providence put me in front of the greatest obstacle any police officer could face. Just 40 kilometers from here, in a sleepy hamlet called Sri Perumbudur at that time, I was piloting the former pilot and former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, the young and charismatic John F. Kennedy of India, little knowing that one of the greatest obstacles that I would ever face, I would be just a few seconds away from that. As I led in, my SP said, go a little ahead, because the VIP doesn't like too many police officers crowding him. I took a couple of steps, but I was just 3 feet ahead of the former Prime Minister, as he was receiving greetings and shots from people who were lined up. He had come to a group of women who had also been checked. He was exchanging pleasantries with them. He came to a young girl dressed in white who was reading a poem in Hindi, a Tamil girl doing the unlikely thing of writing a poem in Hindi in praise of the leader. I thought he would be too much of a hurry, he wouldn't wait. I took one more step, I turned back, I didn't see him because in that moment he had called the girl's mother who was trying to come nearer as her daughter read the poem. As I turned around, I didn't see him, and so I tried to retrace my steps. At that moment, the world's first human bomb or woman bomb exploded. An assassin had pulled a toggle switch, which severed her head, decapitated her head. That head landed in the D in front of the stage. But that bomb also blew to smithereens the beautiful personage of the former Prime Minister. He was lying akimbo, and people could recognize him only by the branded shoes that he wore. Around him was a picture, a scene from hell, a nightmare, 18 people dead. They have fallen like dead petals, as a forensic expert called it, Rajiv, or a lotus formation. The stigma was the VIP lying dead. And all around were so many people who were already dead and some 30-40 people, including me, badly injured. I had 20% burns right from the face to the legs. The shock wave had broken all the bones of my right hand, and the steel pellets had penetrated, leaving scars even till 25 years later, right on my palm, leaving some kind of cavity on the back of the hand, and blowing one nail off, which grew back a little misshapen. But by God's grace, I would say, Providence had it that I should survive. But as I survived, I was wondering, why did this happen to me? So what are the first questions that a person facing an obstacle asks? Is a trauma of understanding more than in the tragedy. It is a trauma of trying to understand, why did this happen to you? Is it that Providence had chosen you for that particular trauma as a kind of a penalty or a punishment? Or is it because you were chosen because you had strength to bear it while another would not? And as I cogitated on this in the weeks that I took, months that I took to recover and live back to normalcy, I asked, why did Providence allow this? And some people who read my name in the papers saying ASP Philip is severely injured. In fact, in the first dispatches from the Chief Secretary to the Government of India, I was included among the dead. So some people who knew me, they came to visit me in the Apollo Hospital. And I again was asking them this question in real agony. More than the bleeding wounds, 100 steel pellets still penetrated, lying in different parts of my frame, body, bone and flesh. More than that was the agony of trying to understand why did this happen. And as I asked these friends, why did it happen? They told me the story of a group of women who went to the village goldsmith and asked the goldsmith, till what point do you keep the gold in the fire? And the goldsmith said, it's simple, as soon as I see my image in the gold, I stop burnishing it, refining it in the fire. Which meant that God allows us to go through these suffering and troubles to the point where His image becomes visible in us. Our life acquires a purpose and meaning. We are not meant to be mere consumers of goods and services. We are not supposed to be mere accumulators of wealth or merely for the enjoyment of whims and pleasures. But our life should have a purpose and direction. And that event, I believe, took place to make me come in terms with the purpose of life, the meaning of life. So the whole disciplines that this author talks about leads up to something which he doesn't talk about, which is inspiration. The inspirational value of obstacles. It is not just that that individual has overcome an obstacle, but that the source of inspiration that he becomes after his heroic overcoming of an obstacle. You might have seen in social media a man who is only this much in terms of stature. He has neither limbs. He has only a vestige of arms and vestige of feet. But this man, any of you know his name? Nick. And he's from Australia. And he is today able to do what most able-bodied people are not able to do. He can surf, he can dive, he can, use a yacht. And basically the inspiration that he has been to millions of people around the world. A diminutive man. So whatever be the obstacle, the types of obstacles that people face are several. Inherited obstacles. A person is born with a natural impediment. This is a very heavy cross to bear. Most of us have all our faculties and we should be thankful for that. But many are born with a natural impediment. And how do they overcome that obstacle? That becomes a source of inspiration. And all the rest of society should play a role in enabling such people to overcome these obstacles. And when we play a part in enabling people to overcome obstacles, we feel that sense of goodness. We feel that sense of greatness. This is what Stephen Covey called the greatness habit. When we do whatever we can to make the suffering of others who are facing such natural impediments, it enables us to realize our greater selves, our better selves. So any obstacle can leave a man battered, bitter, or better. But it is the third option that should be the only available option for each one of you. Even though we are battered by suffering, by troubles, as I was when I was injured, in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination. For it took me months to understand the whole thing, and that's when I evolved this full process equilibrium thinking, which enabled me further to teach thousands and thousands of people, either through the net or through talks like this or through my writing. So the inspirational value of obstacles is what is going to impact the future of our nation. How do people in limited areas of limited opportunities overcome obstacles, financial obstacles? We have here a person who has sacrificed his entire career in order to invest into grassroots movements to empower people. So it is not only overcoming an obstacle, but equipping others to overcome different types of obstacles. That is what enables us to discover the purpose and meaning of our lives. As a trainee, my trainer taught me this principle that a blow that does not break your back will help to straighten it. And therefore, anything that will enable us to straighten our psyche, to straighten our attitudes, to make us realize that we are not selfish clods living for ourselves, but that we have a purpose beyond our own happiness. That is one of the great objectives of human suffering. When you double your trouble and half your chance of winning, when you go into a trouble with the wrong perspective, you half your chance of winning when you enter a troubled situation or an obstacle with a wrong perspective. And that is why the perspective is very vital. And the author emphasizes that, the discipline of perception. But we need to also turn our thoughts, our perceptions are basically thoughts. Our thoughts should be turned into emotions. We should be passionate about it. Whatever we do, we should be passionate about it. That will enable us to overcome the intensity of suffering when we face an obstacle. The passion that I have developed in order to transform the Indian police, which is an impossible goal, came to me, I believe, when in the hours of suffering in Sri Perumbudur. I said that Rajiv Gandhi was a man born with a silver spoon. He had everything that going for him. And if anyone should have survived, it should have been him and not me. That God had chosen me to survive, there is a special purpose. And this is a dramatic confirmation of that. And this opportunity to continue in the police service is an opportunity to transform the Indian police. And as the inspector picked me up as I was lying injured and put me in the back of a jalopy of a jeep, since my own jeep driver had fled with my jeep, fearing repercussions, people getting violent, the mob becoming, unruly, beating up policemen and police officers. I was put in the back of a jeep, and a young man with a torn shirt, he cradled my head in his lap. The inspector had to go back to rescue many other dying or injured people. And there was no other police officer to accompany. And this young man, he got into the jeep. And I do not know, because I was very thirsty and I think I was asking for water, and he gave me drops of water. And I turned to him with real empathy, real understanding of love. And I asked him in Tamil, "Thambi, un per enna?" Because I wanted to remember who is this young man who came to me, who gave me succor and soaked my lips with water as I was really dying of thirst. And he said his name is Purushothaman, the best man. I believe that he is a divine messenger sent to me. As soon as I reached the nearby hospital, he had disappeared. So out of the obstacle comes a solution for the police. That became the inspiration of this movement called Friends of Police. A year later, when I was promoted as Superintendent of Police, Virudhunagar district, I thought of this idea of Friends of Police. But the genesis was this young man, an untrained civilian, who had not been told by anyone to accompany me. or to give me assistance. He became the inspiration for this movement. I said the police image is not just neutral, but is highly negative, and you need a mass movement in community policing to transform the image of the police. And for that, you need to crystallize it into a concept which everyone can relate to. Every illiterate fisherman, every scholarly professor, every author or leader, every society person should be able to relate to it. And this idea, as I shared about it in various fora, lots of people said, we too want to serve our nation and become friends of police. Today it has found echoes in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. Every nation, I believe, will have friends of police in the course of my lifetime. This is my vision. And so the vision can be born in a moment when you are overcoming or facing an obstacle. It cannot be taught in a classroom. It cannot be transferred to you by another person. But that vision, that value and passion will be born as we are facing and enduring an obstacle. So there is tremendous value in this subject. The author has basically delved into it from the Stoic perspective. I have also dealt with it not just in the Stoic or philosophical perspective, but from the perspective of faith. Many of these obstacles are so enormous challenges that you cannot deal with it with just your limited cognitive ability. You need to delve into faith to understand it in true perspective. That is one of the missing aspects in the text of this book, probably because of various limitations. So with these words, I want to congratulate Mr. Vijay Bala for having chosen this subject, because this is relevant for every human being. And that's why I say that the outrageous claims of modern science and modern education about spirituality and God will always be disbelieved as long as the human race face obstacles which are so diverse. It could be as diverse, as I told you, as a natural impediment with which one is born. It could be impediments that come up in the course of life, accidents, as I faced. It could be tragedies that happen, bereavements that happen. It could be financial loss, as I mentioned the case of a businessman whose empire went from the top to the bottom. So I once again congratulate the panelists for the scintillating discussion that they are going to follow up this keynote address with. Thank you.